Social media exploded after a video purportedly depicting the theft of valuables from one of Fetty Wap's pals in New Jersey was made public. As his entourage leaves the scene, the video seems to show the event happening in broad daylight beneath surveillance cameras. Since then, there have been speculations floating online that Fetty may have reacted violently and sought retribution against those purportedly responsible. We analyse the case, music, and the video that is now circulating online in this video. The video began making the rounds on April 2, 2026. Fuzzy Fazzu, an affiliate of Fetty Music, was robbed in broad daylight, while his team flees. Fuzzy Music, Fazzu, a rapper and close friend of Fetty Wap from Paterson, New Jersey, was targeted for everything he carried in the video, which looked to be surveillance film. And in the middle of the day in New Jersey, while the cameras were rolling, jewels, watches and chains were all gone. The reactions of those in Fuzzy Fazzu's immediate vicinity were what made the film particularly upsetting to see. His group flees. The video went from being a local event to a national talking point because of that one aspect alone. Those who were meant to be standing next to him dispersed. The individual was being robbed of his belongings while those closest to him vanished from view. There was no defense, no music pushback. This video appeared on World Star, Music, My Mixtape on X, and all subsequent blogs and repost pages. The video had already received tens of thousands of views and was music rising by the time most people got up on April 2nd. But no one in Fetty Wap's crew would have wanted Fuzzy Fazzu's name to go from a specialised search to a popular issue. Now, music. If you recognise the term Fuzzy Fazzu, you should. He and Fetty have worked musically on tracks like Jigab, which have been available on Spotify since 2019. The two are both from Paterson, New Jersey, which has given rise to a close-knit community of affiliates and artists who revolve around the success of Fetty Wap. Fuzzy Fazzu is not a passing acquaintance. He is someone who has represented the same block, been in the studio, and been around the circle. Therefore, the entire network, not just Fuzzy Fazzu, receives a very particular warning when someone like that is robbed on video. The video went viral, as it typically does in hip-hop circles, quick, brutal, and accompanied by comments. People were acting like clowns. Every frame was being examined by somebody. Individuals were posing queries. Where was this music? This was done by whom? And why did everyone in his immediate vicinity simply walk away? Above all, however, there was one item that people were curious about. What would Fetty Card do about it? You must comprehend the location and victims of this robbery in order to comprehend why it is significant. Maxwell grew up in Paterson, New Jersey, where he was born. That is Fetty Wap's true hometown, his birthplace, his starting point, and the source of everything he raps and sings about. His hometown is Paterson, New Jersey, which he calls the zoo in his lyrics. That moniker was identification as much as branding. The same Paterson streets were referenced in every song, advertisement, a chain with the number 1738, and Zoo Gang. Paterson is vast, varied and dense, and it is impossible to sum up life there in a few words. Drug misuse and violence are a problem in some places, and everyone who grew up there, including Fetty, and everyone in his immediate vicinity was influenced by those circumstances. Fetty didn't abandon Paterson when he arrived. Everyone in his immediate vicinity, including the bouncers, managers, and crew, had some Paterson ancestry. The entire neighbourhood was present when Fetty and Monty arrived. The ethos was that you succeed and you bring your people with you. That fabric included Fuzzy Fazzu. He was a member of the network of colleagues, affiliates, and artists that sprang out of Fetty Wap's phenomenal success. And that achievement was genuine. Fetty Wap gained widespread recognition following his 2014. He signed with 300 Entertainment, an Atlantic Records division, after the single Trap Queen reached number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. The momentum continued unabated after then. Two of his 2015 singles, My Way remixed with Drake and 679 featuring Remy Boys, peaked in the top 10 of the chart. He was all over the place. Fetty won the 2016 iHeartRadio Music Awards and Billboard Music Awards for Best New Artist and Top New Artist, respectively, and garnered 2 Grammy Award nominations, music. Patterson, however, never gave up. The streets of Patterson were always a character in the narrative, even at the height of Fetty's popularity. His boys, the Remy Boys, the RGF, Real Goodfellas, Music, and the Zoo Gang, among others, were always mentioned, seen, and included in the story. Fetty informed DJ Smalls that he names himself Zoo, which is why he dyes his hair the way he does. The zoo is me. Man, welcome to the zoo. Zoo Gang, he said, going on to say that he is a head honcho. He therefore requires a mane, just like a lion. Fuzzy Fazzu lived on that planet. Music. A world where being close to Fetty, the zoo and the Remy lads was meant to have some significance. It was meant to be heavy. At the very least, it was meant to serve as a deterrent or a layer of protection. However, that day, in broad daylight, it was captured on camera. That didn't matter. Affiliations didn't matter to the robbers. They didn't give a damn about the crew that Fuzzy Fazzu represented or who he knew. They noticed jewellery. They recognised a chance. And while his alleged team vanished into thin air, they accepted it. This is when things get really awkward because someone in Fetty Wap's circle had already been targeted for their jewels. Not even near. Return to 2017, more than $450,000 in cash and jewels were stolen from Fetty Wap. Following a physical conflict with Raheem Thomas, also known as Fuzz, that resulted in a shootout, Fetty was robbed of over $450,000 in jewels and cash on Sunday in his hometown of Paterson, New Jersey. Music. That heist didn't take place at 3 a.m. in a dimly lit lane, the M. It took place in a bodega, or deli, the type of establishment you enter mindlessly. A man by the name of Raheem, sometimes known as Fuzz, Fetty, was followed into a deli by a group of men led by a promoter from Paterson, New Jersey. Dear Raheem ended up pistol whipping a member of Fetty Wap's team in Paterson, New Jersey. In the end, they jumped Fetty and his group, Music, stealing the $350,000 chain and many $1,000s. Fetty's iconic 1,738 chain, which stood for everything he had created, was torn from his neck, and the heist wasn't the end of it. 2 of Fuzz's boys, a 34-year-old man and a 37-year-old man, were shot during a gunfight. In the end, the man who was accused of shooting those 2 men shot himself in the thigh. In the same streets where Fetty was raised, blood was poured over chains and money. The altercation was captured on live camera, which showed Fuzz brandishing a gun. Not long later, images were shared on Instagram of Fuzz is dressed similarly and has the same chain around his neck. It was astounding how blatant it was. And post the stolen items on social media like a prize after robbing a man. After seeing footage of the crime, police arrested Raheem, also known as Fuzz, from Muscle Team Entertainment for armed robbery and weapons possession. Raheem was simply detained on suspicion of possessing a firearm. Fetty and company did not press charges and continued to remain silent. Music. That quiet said a lot. You learned everything there is to know about how particular circles operate. You don't call the police. You either deal with it in a different way or not at all. Thus, the repercussions of that 2017 incident became evident when Fuzzy Fazzu was robbed in 2026. Music. In the same city, the same kind of target, the same boldness in daylight. And the video was all over the place once more. This time, however, was the victim of the robbery was not even accompanied by his crew. There was no mistaking the pattern. You weren't untouchable just because you were associated with Fetty and the zoo. If anything, it left a lasting impression on you. The visible shows of wealth that came with being in that orbit included jewelry and chains. Those objects caught people's attention. Additionally, you could lose whatever you were wearing in Patterson if you attracted the wrong kind of attention. You must comprehend what had been going on with Fetty. Up until this point, in order to completely understand why this heist hurts the way it does. Because the man who was meant to be this circle's gravitational center had spent the last 3 years in prison. After being detained in New York City in October 2021, Chief Fetty and 5 other people were charged with cocaine trafficking conspiracy. The following month, he entered a not guilty plea and was set free on a $500,000 bail while he awaited trial. However, independence was short-lived. In August 2022, the rapper's bond was cancelled. By reportedly displaying a gun and threatening Music to murder a guy during a FaceTime call, the prosecution accused him of breaking the terms of the release order, which included not having a handgun. Between June 2019 and June 2020, Fetty and 5 other defendants were charged with conspiring to possess and distribute over 100 kilograms of heroin, crack cocaine, fentanyl, and music. The prosecution claimed that they transported drugs from the West Coast to Long Island using cars with secret compartments and the U.S. Music Postal Service. There they were kept in storage so that retailers in New Jersey and Long Island could get the music. Fetty entered a guilty plea to his narcotics charges on August 22, 2022, and was sentenced to 6 years in jail in New York on May 24, 2023. The charges were serious, the evidence was substantial, and the music was. The zoo's leader was absent for 3 years. Sitting at FCI Sandstone, a low-security prison in Sandstone, Minnesota, was the man whose name had weight on the streets of Patterson and whose popularity had lifted a whole crew of artists and associates. Far from the people who needed him, far from New Jersey, far from the blocks he used to run. Then something changed in the beginning of 2026. Fetty Wap was at last free after serving 3 arduous years in prison. Fetty Wap was released from federal prison in Sandstone, Minnesota, 11 months ahead of schedule, and placed in community detention under the supervision of the BOPS, the Residential Re-Entry Management Office in Philadelphia. His spokesman said that Fetty Wap was now confined to his house. Upon release, the rapper's tone was measured, introspective, and altered. Fetty Wap is feeling upbeat. According to Music Abby Menando, his publicist, he is grounded and motivated. His family, parenthood, music, and contributing to his community are his top priorities. He became more clear about how intentional he wanted to be about providing routes for long-term success, particularly for artistic youngsters. During his sentence, she continued. And the music began to flow almost instantly. He revealed Zavir, his comeback album, on March 16, 2026. The 17-track album, which included features by Wiz, was published on March 27, 2026, G Herbo, and Khalifa. According to Fetty, the project was a representation of a new phase in his life. Themes of personal development, taking a break from the spotlight, and adjusting to a return to the music business are at the heart of the album. He also had music ready for a show. A welcome return show was announced on his official website. Then, a few days prior to that homecoming performance, his affiliate was mugged in broad public in New Jersey while being filmed. The timing was terrible because the film was going viral. Even if you tried, you couldn't have written a worse scenario for this to occur. Let's take a step back and examine the big picture, because there are multiple robberies in this story. See, it concerns what transpires when a rapper's ecosystem begins to fracture from the inside out. The zoo was powerful in 2015 and 2016, when Fetty was at the height of his musical career. There was a large crew. It was a well-documented fact that zoo gang loyalty was strong. Music, The Remy Boys Montana Bucks, also known as Monty P. Dice and Fetty, would represent their street affiliates, promoters, and collective producers. They all benefited from the enthusiasm that Fetty's achievements inspired. However, the legal issues, arrests, prison term, and music, 3 years with the Snake's Head in jail, followed. The foundation that had previously kept everything together began to deteriorate during that period, music. The flow of money slowed, the visibility decreased, the hidden disincentive, the fear factor, when that comes with participating in a crew that was associated with someone well-known, influential, or significant, vanished. Music. The vultures began to circle at that point. It was already terrible when Fetty was robbed in 2017. Fetty was still well known at the time, and his music was still riding the tail end of his commercial wave. However, there was pushback at least then. There were gunshots. The offender was taken into custody. Even if they didn't go through the judicial system, there were repercussions. However, this Fuzzy Fazoo robbery in 2026 was unique. There was no opposition. The crew dispersed. After taking what they desired, the robbers left. The world learned something from the footage captured on camera. The defense that Fetty Wap was once associated with, music, and the zoo may no longer exist. Not the way it used to, anyway. Does that imply that Fetty Wap is finished now? Not always. The dude recently released an album. Thanks to the JBL speaker movement, his 2015 single got a new audience on TikTok and returned to the Billboard Hot 100 chart music at number 41. Comedian and close friend Fatboy claims that shortly after Fetty's release, he put him on the phone with Gilly the Kid while they were on FaceTime. During the call, the musician from New Jersey also revealed that he was meeting with his label, 300 Entertainment. Fetty is still valued by the fans and the industry. But the streets use a different currency. Respect, terror, and the sense of strength are that currency. Your affiliate's perception suffers greatly when he is robbed on tape and left standing there, music by his own team. It makes no difference how many times your album is streamed or how many times you are nominated for an award. The only thing that counts on the block is whether or not people hesitate to approach you and yours. As of right now, people aren't giving it a second thought based on everything we've seen, including the video of Fuzzy Fazoo losing his jewelry while his tribe disappeared. And that's the truth about this. Fetty is at home. He is composing music. It is commendable that he is discussing community outreach and second music opportunities. However, someone close to him was assaulted in the most public manner imaginable somewhere in New Jersey on a street that was probably only a few miles from the blocks he grew up on. And whether the zoo still has teeth, or whether the world Fetty Khan created has become something that only exists in nostalgia, in old songs, and in memories of a time when the name alone was enough to keep you safe, is the unanswered question that this video forced everyone to face. Since the video is truthful, the video shows a lone man being robbed while his group fled. And more than any diss track, social media post, or prison sentence, Fetty, course, originates from that image, which is the toughest thing to overcome in the world.